It's no secret that small business owners are still facing challenges when it comes to landing funds. With us now to talk about how the credit crisis has affected different sources of financing is George Cloutier. He's the CEO of American Management Services and the author of the new book, Profits Aren't Everything, They're the Only Thing. And Todd McCracken is here as well. He's the president of the National Small Business Association. Great to see both of you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
All right, Todd, I want to start with you. We hear different reports. The SBA is saying there's more lending out there to small businesses than we hear from small businesses. I've been to my bank and I can't get a loan. What's the reality?
Well, the reality is credit is really, really tight out there, and it's even more crucial that it's tight than it ever has been before in this contraction period, because now there actually are some opportunities to grow, but they've got to get the credit, they've got to be able to get the lending to do that. And what you're hearing from the SBA is their lending programs have gone up in the last few months, but they're still well below where they were last year and the year before that.
So George, what are you seeing? Are people still having really hard times, or is it getting at all easier?
Let me give you a brutal example that came up yesterday. We have a client in the Midwest who's in the woodworking business, $5 million in annual revenue. The bank called yesterday and said, we want you to pay back $300,000 of your $600,000 line of credit. And they said, how did you, we can't. They said, yes, you can, because we just saw your mother's obituary in the newspaper.
Okay, well, that's one terrible example, of course, but is this indicative of what's happening everywhere?
There is no major lending increase of any kind that we see, and we see several hundred clients a week in the small business area. The SBA, as he pointed out before, is off 30 to 40% from last year, which is off the year before. Their ARC program has made 3,000 loans to 23 million small businesses. It's just not working. So
Todd, what do you see on the horizon, if anything, that makes you a little bit optimistic that there may be money out there and that banks may loosen up their lending standards?
Well, I think they're going to need some help. I mean, we've been advocates of finding an innovative way to use existing TARP funds to get money to small businesses through the community banks primarily, because those are the people who will take that money and lend it rather than sitting on it. And there's some indications some people in some of the right places are listening to us on that, and maybe we're doing something. But if we don't find some ways to get credit out there, especially short-term credit, lines of credit, working capital, in the hands of small companies, that can take advantage of opportunities, we may have found the bottom of this recession, but we're going to sit on the bottom for a long time if we don't get this fixed.
And there is movement, or at least discussion, as you said, about diverting some of that TARP funding to the community banks. How do you then ensure that the community banks then lend that to small business?
Well, I don't think you would design a program that looks like TARP did per se, where banks just use it to shore up their balance sheets. You could design a program where they access funds actually for lending, and they don't get the money unless they lend it. It'd be a whole different structure than what TARP was. Our only suggestion is maybe you could use some of those leftover TARP monies to fund it.
And George, what are businesses that you come across doing now? How are they surviving, businesses that used to survive on credit?
Well, most of them, there's a survey out that shows that 50% of owners have substantially cut their own incomes to stay alive. They've cut expenses, and of course they've cut jobs like we've never seen before. So they're just scratching by, scraping by each week.
Is there anything that you see out there that leads you to be optimistic at all? George?
Well, I think the general economy is moving up off the bottom, but there's a long way to go. And there is a natural lift that will occur. The issue is, when will it occur? This year, next year, 3 years from now? And I think, as Todd said, they've got to get more money into the system. And I think they should create a $25 billion direct loan program. Direct loan. Working through the banks is simply not proving to be wildly successful, shall we say.
Not yet. All right. Well, Todd McCracken and George Cloutier, thank you so much for coming on the program.